Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Neil Milliken. I am the Global Head of Accessibility here at Atos. This is our event for Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It's actually the 11th time that we've held an event celebrating GAD, and this year the global theme is Committing to Change. We're aiming to spark conversations and enhance understanding about digital access and inclusion. 2025 is going to be a significant year for accessibility for multiple reasons. The European Accessibility Act is coming into force in a few weeks' time in June, and the ADA Title II requirements mean that in the public sector in the US, there is an increased focus as well. On top of the existing requirements, from hundreds of different pieces of regulations and legislation around the world. Then we have reporting requirements for CSRD and CSDD. These are important pieces of regulation around corporate sustainability reporting and due diligence, and accessibility and the impacts, risks and opportunities for businesses around disability inclusion are a necessary part of corporate governance. But as Susanna Lauren of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals points out, compliance is just the baseline. We always want to do more around accessibility. The nature of what we do in accessibility also goes beyond technical requirements of web accessibility and apps. For that reason, we have policy and regulatory experts, assistive technologists, quality, process and automation specialists, procurement experts, all contributing to our collective work to build the accessibility ecosystem. Now, these days, when we're talking about technology, we can't do it without talking about AI has stood things on its head as far as accessibility is concerned. As a neurodivergent person, I have dyslexia and ADHD. AI is adding features that support me as an assistive technology that are really presenting the first major new developments in assistive tech for cognitive accessibility in several decades. It's not that there weren't improvements in accessibility for cognitive before, but they were incremental. Now we have an entire new class of assistive tech built into our day-to-day working environment through things like co-pilots that can enable us to really have access to support that was previously impossible. So I hope that you're going to really enjoy the sessions today. We're taking a very broad brush approach. We're looking at things like AI, regulations, procurement, and also new developments in technology to support assistive technology and the management of those workplace adjustments and accommodations for employees in the workplace. Because it is, as I mentioned before, all part of an accessibility ecosystem. So now I would like to take the opportunity to hand over to my colleagues and welcome the first session for GAD.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here this year again. My name is Beatriz González Mellides. I am the head of accessibility and digital inclusion at Atos for Central Europe. And I'm here to talk to you about inclusive and accessible engaged employee experience thanks to GenAI. So when we work at Atos with our customers and within our program for our own employees, we talk about the hire to retire journey. That also includes, of course, aging. So we have different phases: attraction, recruitment, onboarding, development, retention, and separations. Because when our employees need to go for a while or they decide to change jobs, we want to make sure that they are able to come back again, because we don't want to lose talent. All along this way, there's different steps and different touch points where we can offer different types of accommodations. And I'm going to give you an example of my own accommodations nowadays, thanks to AI. I have given here 4 examples of some challenging tasks. The first one would be writing up a strategic plan for a tender on accessibility as a service. I have to do it in German. It has to be maximum 1,000 characters. And of course, I found out last minute, so it has to be in 48 hours. So another one would be assistive technology request process for one of my team members. And 2 of my most challenging tasks are finding documents across the whole SharePoint, intranet, and my own way of organizing all my folders, and also my time and travel expenses reports. How can AI help me further? So we've all heard of the fear of the white page, right? GenAI can help me with content writing. So I can ask my GenAI assistant to create a first draft for a report, an email, or maybe that calendar invite agenda that I don't really know how to structure. It can help me fill in the support ticket for my colleague. So I can ask, please draft an assistive technology request with these needs. And I can put it in a bullet form and it will provide the whole ticket text that I can copy and paste in the system. I can also ask the GenAI to help me to review the tone and to improve my grammar. I could even bring the Atos inclusive language guidelines for the GenAI to review and act as the tone police and the disability language police, so I don't have to call in my colleagues if there's some type of ableistic term slid in the text. So that helps me be more relaxed and don't have to go into a police tone mode. All in all, working with a GenAI assistant at the workplace is for me right now a great support. It can help me to prioritize. For example, in the morning, I can do a request for summarizing all my customer emails and chat messages from the past 3 days to help me prioritize by urgency, by energy needed to achieve a positive result, and also the impact that these emails are going to have. Moving on in the day, I could get support to help me prepare for a review meeting where it provides guest information and a summary of our previous interactions with each of the persons that are invited. Because sometimes I forget, maybe we talked 3 months ago and I talked to a lot of people in between about different topics, and it already tells me what we talked, so I don't have to try to find out and maybe find out in the middle of the meeting that I do know this person and we had amazing conversations before, right? So it will help me be more relaxed and know what I'm talking about with the context, because people usually remember me. I have a very Spanish name in Germany, so my colleagues will remember my name and what we talked about. And I can also please ask the GenAI to include the goal for the meeting and what is expected of me if I need to prepare for something. When writing documents, I mentioned before, so I can also ask for support when reading, to summarize the document, to read in 5 minutes, because maybe I don't have more time to read through the whole document. So I can really get the information before the meeting. And if I am writing myself, to review the tone for external publication. So to make sure that I don't make any mistakes when I'm writing myself. Another example would be missing information. In virtual meetings, I have a lot of back-to-back meetings, and sometimes, a package arrives and I need to go to the door, or one of my kids comes in wanting to say hi and I miss some information. If that happens, or if I arrive late because I was sharing my screen, I can always ask quietly to the GenAI, what did I miss? I don't have to be the person annoying who arrives late and then stops everyone requesting them to do a summary. I can also ask the GenAI if my name was mentioned, in which context, and what are the action items so far that I may have missed. It can also help me to better understand in virtual meetings. I have, for example, some colleagues that talk a lot, and when we talk in German, some of them use very high-level German legal language, and they use a lot of time to explain the whole thing in a very nice, friendly way, right? I get to a point that I get excited and annoyed because it's taking so long for me to understand what they really want from me. So instead of being the annoying person that is rude to my colleague, which I really don't mean, I can go to the GenAI assistant and ask them directly, what does this person really want from me? And then what I do is I read out loud, do you want this, and this from me? And if they say yes, the meeting is over and I have a win, right? And then I can go on and I don't get angry and my colleague doesn't get offended because I said something out of tone. And at the end of the day, it can help me to prioritize my last task, because if I go into focus mode, I will probably pick up my kids late from school. So I can request to list all the emails by urgency and all the drafts that I didn't send during the day because I got interrupted, and to propose a step-by-step plan to finish writing the 5 most urgent to finish my work on time at 5 p.m. And I can even ask to set up an alarm at 4 p.m. to ask the GenAI to give me a status update and further guidance on how to finish my day on time. So this is just a couple of examples of how I use GenAI in my workday. We've seen GenAI has a huge potential to foster inclusion with various benefits, not just for people with disabilities like me, but also for everyone else. Feel free to take all these hints and use them in your daily work. GenAI can improve well-being, making life at work better by improving agency. So it helps me feel more in control. It helps me reduce anxiety, to feel less worried if I'm going to arrive late or I realize that I arrived late to the next meeting. It can help me reduce my cognitive load, making me think easier so I can concentrate on things that matter most. It also helps with performance and making people like me work better by improving concentration and focus, paying attention, task prioritization, help me to decide what to do first and how to organize better my day. It can help me to summarize documents. Sometimes there's a lot of text and you don't have time to read it all. So you can get first an idea of the paper before you read everything in detail at a different later time in the day when you have better organization to read in peace. It can help me leverage customized learnings. I could even create lessons to learn something at my own way. I could create a quiz to learn more about WCAG, for example. It also helps me at the end to independent creative solutions and find new ideas of my own where I feel more in charge. I invite you to try it at your own pace.
Thank you very much, Beatriz, for that fascinating session on AI and the use cases for accessibility. I think I am as excited as anyone about the possibilities that this opens up for people like me. Now we're going to hand over to my colleague Jim Smith, Head of Accessibility and Digital Inclusion for UK and I, and also responsible for our portfolio of accessibility offerings. Jim is going to take you through something that we're very excited about, and that is the Atos Advisor Console. So it really is an exciting development that helps us, and we hope will help many other organizations manage accessibility features, assistive technology, and gain actionable insights around the inclusive features that people are using in the workplace. Over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Neil. I'm Jim Smith, Head of Accessibility and Digital Inclusion for the UK and I in Atos. I'd like to talk to you today about a new tool that we've developed, the Atos Advisor Console, which is an analytic tool that provides actionable insights on assistive technology and accessibility features in enterprise environments. This is a really exciting addition to our support and tooling that we provide because it gives us a chance to move from what is essentially a subjective approach to accessibility and support of assistive technology to a much more quantitative approach. The business challenge we are addressing is primarily that the assistive technology users are disproportionately impacted when they experience issues with their assistive technology or the accessibility features that they're using in their operating system or the software that they're using. Now, the ability to configure and track accessibility settings, particularly in enterprise environments, is often challenging because enterprise environments are typically locked down, so some of the features aren't available. And also, if you're in an international environment, the features are not evenly distributed and available across all of your geographies. Now, customers are required to track and support the support provided to members of protected groups, and this often results in sensitive data being processed. So one of the key challenges this tool addresses is that while we can monitor the assistive technology and the accessibility settings people are used, privacy is at the heart of the tool, and the people's sensitive data is protected by default. It also allows organizations to understand the available assistive technologies that are deployed on the estate and what may be appropriate to help boosting productivity of the users. Now, the Atos Advisor Console enables the measurement, monitoring, and management of installed assistive technology applications. The inbuilt assistive technology and accessibility features of both the operating system and productivity tools that are in use, and the accessibility settings in the client's digital workplace, so we can monitor what has been turned off by default and what is actually being used by users across the estate. The tool itself is also supported by Atos accessibility specialists who deliver the initial deployment of the tool, the ongoing analysis of the data to enhance the support of assistive technology users across the customer's estate. And we do this using a series of dashboards that automatically track trends across the estate and provide data-driven suggestions on improving the experience of disabled employees. Performance metrics will help in proactively supporting employees by ensuring the assistive technologies and accessibility features are performing optimally. So let's take a look at what the console looks like. This is an example of the assistive technology console where we can look at the total devices in the estate, the number of devices where assistive technology is enabled, and the number of assistive technology solutions we've identified running on the estate. When we look at the data, we can classify the assistive technology by support needs, such as cognitive and language support needs, or vision, or motor and mobility support needs, or we can also look at the assistive technology types, the magnification, for example, or whether it's ergonomics and posture, or dictation software or screen readers. So that's useful. That gives us an overview of how the estate looks from an assistive technology point of view, but we can also drill down and look at the assistive technology performance across the estates. And we do that, we can look at the crashes, the frequency of the crashes, and the assistive technology freezes. This is really useful because often we've found that assistive technology users can be reluctant to report changes and issues that they have in the systems because they're used to supporting themselves. So often this information doesn't get fed back to service desk, and we lose the ability to capture that information effectively. And this allows us to, on a regular basis, report on the performance of the assistive technologies on the estate. We will be developing this tool to allow us to delve down and deeply dive into the performance of the individual assistive technologies that are there. We also look at the operating system accessibility features. These are a little bit different from the assistive technologies that are installed because they're typically controlled by configuration by the end user themselves. And this allows us to look at things such as whether dark mode's being used a lot in the systems, whether people are using touch keyboards, whether sticky keys have been enabled, and whether or not the mono audio has been enabled. And we can look across individual devices. Now, this information is quite sensitive, so we tend to make sure that it's private, and we look at the deployment across the estate rather than on individual machines with this. And we can look at how many accessibility features are used by type, by support need, and also whether or not multiple accessibility features are active per device, because often we find people use multiple accessibility features. We can do the same with the productivity accessibility features, such as those present in the office suites. And what's useful here is not only do we look at the accessibility features that people are using to facilitate their day-to-day work, we can also track how often things like accessibility checker have been used. So we can see, are people actually checking the accessibility of the documents that they're producing, and do people have the right tools to ensure that what they create is fully accessible? Not only do they have the tools to ensure that they can access the Office applications effectively that they want to use. Now, the client benefits we've been talking about are really that the digital insights and the performance of assistive technologies across the digital workspace can be tracked and measured in a quantitative way, and also in a way that protects users' privacy. We can provide proactive support from a team of dedicated accessibility specialists who have the information to hand on how the accessibility and assistive technology in the state is performing at any given point in time. And key to everything that we do here is the privacy and data protection of sensitive employee information. And this is controlled and managed, so people who simply want to report on the usage across the estate don't get any information about the individual's machines that are involved. But if it's, let's say, we have support technicians, they will be able to drill down because they require that information to provide proactive support for the assistive technology users. And hopefully this will reduce the number of tickets to service desk, also reduce the downtime and increase productivity, because we can ensure that the assistive technology that's deployed and running in the estate and the accessibility features that people are used are up to date and appropriate for their tasks. So how is it run? It can be run initially as a one-time project where we do the tool through a series of workshops, so the client understands how the tool will work. We will run it, say, for a 30-day sample period is typical, and from that we will provide a workshop, report findings with recommendations where we've done an initial analysis of the assistive technologies and the accessibility features on the customer's estate. And this is ideal for new customers, or if you've got an operating system upgrade or a major refresh projects. And this allows us also to measure the effects of the updates and see, do we actually see a change from the initial state to the end state of the update. And in addition to one-time projects, we also can run as a service by two types of add-ons. We have a NextThink add-on, which provides all the support that you get from the one-time project, plus access to information and dashboards and monthly reporting, and typically about an hour's monthly accessibility consultancy time to help you tweak and ensure that your assistive technology and accessibility estate is running optimally. And this is typically the cost of the one-time project plus a monthly subscription. And that is where we use NextThink to deploy our Atos scripts and retrieve the data. We also have a version that uses Intune for customers that don't have NextThink, that provides essentially the same features for a customer, but doesn't require a NextThink implementation. And this can be deeply integrated with standard Microsoft Intune tooling, and it provides, as I said, the same services. And again, it's a one-time project cost plus a monthly subscription for that. So that's how we run the tool and deploy it to customers. I'm the product manager, Jim Smith, I've been talking to, and the solution architects have been Beatrice and Robert, and we're always happy to talk if you want to contact any of us about this tool.
Thank you very much for that great overview, Jim. I am really excited about the potential that this really gives us to drive adoption of assistive technologies and accessibility features, and to better understand the user population of accessibility features beyond the standard assistive technologies that people are aware of. Now, we're changing topics entirely, and we're looking at the regulatory landscape with my colleague Ricardo, Head of Accessibility Digital Inclusion for Iberia. Over to you, Ricardo.
Hello everyone. Hello, Neil. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. And my name is Ricardo Garcia Belmonte. I'm Head of Accessibility and Digital Inclusion for Atos in Iberia, Spain and Portugal. And in this session, I'm going to be talking about the recent changes in the digital accessibility regulatory landscape, particularly focusing on the European Accessibility Act and its national implementations, and its connections to other relevant laws and regulations in the European Union. So by delving into this topic, highlight some key areas that are shaping our approach to digital accessibility across this whole region that really affects others as well. So the European Accessibility Act was adopted in 2019, and it makes a really significant milestone in the European Union's commitment to ensuring accessibility for all citizens. And this act aims to harmonize accessibility standards across EU member states, particularly for products and services, making it easier for persons with disabilities to participate fully in society. The European Accessibility Act covers various sectors, industries, including transport, banking, digital services, ebooks, education. So by establishing common accessibility requirements, the Act seeks to remove barriers that individuals with disabilities may face. It is essential to understand the Act's provisions, including its scope and its expected outcomes for all businesses and public sector bodies that are affected, to be able to effectively implement it and adhere to its provisions. And what's more, the Act actually emphasizes the importance of user-centric design and the need for organizations affected to adopt accessible practices in their digital offerings. So with the implementation of the European Accessibility Act, we are actually witnessing a shift towards more inclusive design principles that prioritize accessibility from the outset, in this case. So moving to the national implementations of the European Accessibility Act, we have that each EU member state has been tasked with adopting its national laws by the set deadline. We have that while the European Accessibility Act provides a framework, the specific implementations can vary significantly country from country, or the EU member state to EU member state. For example, some countries may prioritize certain sectors or have different timelines for compliance. It is crucial to explore these differences, as they can have significant impact on organizations operating in the European Union space or in multiple jurisdictions, not just one country. However, it's also important to mention that there are also very strong similarities. So many countries may have adopted a collaborative approach involving stakeholders, including disability advocates, in the whole implementation process. This collaboration is aimed at ensuring that the regulations are effective and meet the needs of the whole community. By analyzing these implementations, we can identify, we can glean, obtain valuable insights into best practices and potential also pitfalls that organizations affected should be aware of, and as they can navigate through these. Also, it's important to mention that the European Accessibility Act shouldn't be seen as an isolated piece of legislation. There are very strong connections between the European Accessibility Act and other regulations within the European Union's framework. The European Accessibility Act does not exist in isolation. It complements other really important pieces of legislation, like, for example, the Web Accessibility Directive, the directive that existed before the European Accessibility Act, of course, and it also has been implemented at country level. But also, for example, the General Data Protection Regulation, we know as the GDPR, and for example, how it affects the European Accessibility Act affects public procurement. So understanding these connections is really important for organizations that aim to really comply with all the provisions. For example, the Web Accessibility Directive mandates that public sector websites and mobile applications meet specific accessibility standards, specifically the EN 31549, which greatly align with the objectives of the goals of the European Accessibility Act. And what's actually more, the interplay between accessibility and GDPR is very important because organizations must ensure that their digital platforms are accessible, conform to accessibility requirements, while also protecting the user's data. This is absolutely critical. And this intersection, as many others, raises important questions about how organizations can balance compliance across different regulatory frameworks with their actual business goals as well. So as we've seen, as we move forward in this evolving landscape, it is really imperative that we stay well informed and we act proactively in our approaches to implementing digital accessibility within organizations and how we interact with third parties or with our customers in this respect. So thank you for today for your attention. I'm hoping that these topics have been of interest to you and have provided with a clear understanding of some of these recent changes in the whole disability or digital accessibility regulatory landscape, particularly in the European Union, that actually affect operators from other countries that really want to operate in the European Union space for IT or ICT, information and communication technology products and services, whether they are manufacturers, whether they are importers, whether they are distributors, resellers. There's a whole range of actors affected in this case, by the European Accessibility Act and some of the other laws that have kind of interplay with it and all its implications. At Atos, we believe that we can work together towards making a much more accessible digital world for everyone. I really look forward to seeing how all these laws play out together. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Neil. And I hope you have a great Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, and that was a great session, and I'm going to welcome you back again with our colleague Beata Baumann, who is our Global Procurement, Sustainability and Decarbonisation Lead, because Beata and our friends in procurement, honourable mention to Marta Rubicka here, really have been doing an awful lot of work on driving accessibility through our partner and vendor ecosystem. Beata is really working very much in the space around reporting, CSRD, CSDD, the regulations that I mentioned earlier, and we've undertaken a significant piece of work in engaging with our vendor ecosystem to drive accessibility forward. So I look forward to hearing about this work.
Thank you, Neil. Welcome to our session on accessibility and how Atos has embedded it into its global procurement processes. My name is Ricardo Garcia Belmonte. I'm head of accessibility and digital inclusion for Atos Spain. And it's my pleasure to have Beata Baumann with us, who will share some really valuable insights on how Atos is embedding accessibility into its global procurement processes. So Beata, could you please introduce yourself and your role to us?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ricardo. Very glad to be here My name is Beata Baumann. I'm the Atos Procurement Sustainability Director. I have been with Atos for more than 10 years now, and I have been working with procurement sustainability for the last 9 years. And accessibility is one of the very important topics that we have included in our procurement sustainability strategy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
Excellent. Thanks, Beata. So before we delve into accessibility, can you please provide a brief overview of how your procurement organization, global procurement organization, actually operates?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So just to give you an idea on the organization, on what do we have within Atos Global Procurement, some numbers. So we have roughly around 350 buyers who are supporting the company worldwide. Of course, this includes some people who are working on procurement processes. And procurement is operating in roughly around 20 countries, and we have 3 delivery centers in Poland, India, and Mexico, where we have some procurement support personnel as well. We are covering roughly around 5.4 billion euros spent over 60 countries, so 60 countries where Atos actually operates. And this means that we are working with about 12,000 vendor groups globally. So it's quite a large number of vendors. And out of these 12,000, we have about 180 that are strategic or core suppliers for Atos. So this means that we are actually engaging these vendors a bit more in depth. They are part of our supplier management program, and we have a much closer relationship with these companies.
Excellent. So these are really significant numbers. Where do the procurement, sustainability, and accessibility teams would actually sit within this?
So the procurement, sustainability, and accessibility team is a small team. We are very fortunate to have these resources, as these are all passionate people who are very dedicated to all things related to sustainability and accessibility. We are part of the procurement process team, and actually that's a really good position, because that means that we can not only support all of the Atos regions and also global categories, but we can ensure that sustainability and accessibility is embedded in every single procurement process where it is relevant. So accessibility is part of our sustainability strategy, procurement sustainability strategy, as one of the social topics. And as we are laying now down the foundations to evolve the program and grow the program, we have already embedded this into sourcing and into supplier engagement.
Excellent, thank you. This is really, really comprehensive. Now let's jump into to accessibility. Where and how is accessibility actually embedded in the Atos global procurement processes? Can you please give us an overview of how this works?
Yes, so it is obviously much more in depth, and it is part of a bigger picture, a bigger strategy. So let me talk you through a little bit about the procurement sustainability strategy and how accessibility fits into that. So the sustainable procurement strategy has been developed, for the last 5-7 years now, I would say. And this is something that we are constantly polishing. We are constantly working on. We make sure that we are keeping it actual. All material topics are included, and we are addressing every relevant topic that is dictated either by clients or by other expectations, such as legislation. So just to talk a little bit about these expectations and why is it important that we address them. So most of them, of course, are coming externally. We do have internal expectations and demands as well. But I would say that the client requirements, managing the risk that is potentially there within the supply chain, social responsibility, or just staying competitive at the market are crucial. But also, especially when we are talking about accessibility, we need to follow the evolving ethical and regulatory standards. So the legislative landscape have matured, evolved quite a lot. In the last few years, we know that there are quite a lot of local legislation and EU level legislation that is or will be impacting us. So we need to make sure that, especially when we are working with public sector clients, we fulfill these legislations, we comply with them, and then we also cascade the expectations down to our supply chain. And of course, we have embedded accessibility. This was one of the reasons why it is included in our strategy now, but accessibility is not the only thing that is included. So just to give you a bit bigger overview of where accessibility sits within our strategy. So we have environmental topics, of course, decarbonization being the most material to Atos, but we are also addressing circularity and biodiversity. We have governance related topics where we are monitoring the risk and constantly enhancing our due diligence to understand the risk within the supply chain. And then as part of the social topics, we are addressing human rights. We need to ensure that there's no human rights abuse within our own operations or within our supply chain, further down the tiers. And also we are addressing supplier diversity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think this is where accessibility fits in very nicely. So we are always promoting equal opportunities and inclusivity. And this is why accessibility is such a good fit, not only because of the legislation, but because it is very much in line with our strategy and with our, what Atos is. So when we are talking about accessibility, just like the other sustainability topics, we have already embedded it in our sourcing processes. So this is when we are selecting suppliers to buy products or services from, and also in supplier management. So this is addressing those roughly 180 strategic and core suppliers that we are working more closely with. So these suppliers have actually been assessed, or some of them have been assessed. And I think it's really important to understand that sourcing and supply management are two of the key pathways to understand supplier maturity.
Thanks, Beata. On that same note, can you please elaborate a bit more on how accessibility, the role accessibility plays during a supplier selection?
Absolutely. So when we are talking about supplier selection, we talk about all tenders that Atos is issuing. So this is RFPs, RFQs, so request for proposal, request for quotation. So this is when we go to market to identify a new supplier who we could potentially add to our supply chain. Now, how we scoped accessibility, very much with the help of the accessibility team, of course, is we have identified those categories where accessibility is relevant. And we did talk about legislation, so we know that there are some ICT products where accessibility is very much basically dictated to be included because of the legislation. So we managed to scope accessibility for the categories where it is mandatory, and we have included an accessibility questionnaire into every single one of these tenders. There is a questionnaire for smaller suppliers, and also there's a questionnaire for larger organizations, just to make sure that we are judging everyone fairly, I would say, and of course providing equal opportunities also for smaller organizations. So these accessibility questionnaires are now embedded in our sourcing process. So whenever suppliers are responding to our RFPs, they will have to answer these questions. And that means that when we receive their responses, the procurement, sustainability, and accessibility team will be able to score and evaluate the supplier's maturity levels. Both for sustainability and accessibility, we do have quite I would say, a big detailed questionnaire for both sustainability and accessibility. And when they do this scoring and evaluation, they will pass this on to the relevant buyer and stakeholders, and they will make the recommendation of which supplier they would recommend for the stakeholders and buyers to select. So after we understand the supplier's maturity levels, of course, we can then take it further on. And if there are any necessary next steps, like we have identified some gaps in the supplier's accessibility program, or they don't have a program at all, then of course we will have some follow-up discussions with those suppliers. But basically, this is what we are doing within sourcing now. And then we have started a very similar campaign within our supplier management program. So this means that all of those 180 suppliers who we are working with at a more strategic level, we have reached out to them and we have sent them the accessibility questionnaires to understand their maturity as well. Now, we have done this in the past for many topics, other topics, sustainability, decarbonization specifically. Now we are talking to them about accessibility to understand the maturity levels, because this is, I guess, the crucial element to lay down the foundations to have a proper procurement accessibility program.
Yes, absolutely. And when a purchase decision has been reached and you enter contract negotiations, how does accessibility play a role here during this phase?
It's a really good question, Ricardo. I think it's important to understand that we will not stop just after assessing the supplier's maturity level. Once we understand the maturity, of course, if we are talking about a more mature supplier, then we will be happy to work with them. And if we are talking about a supplier who doesn't really have an accessibility program, it doesn't mean that we will exclude them. Rather, I would say this is an opportunity to start working with the supplier and start educating them about accessibility so they understand why is it important. Why is it important to, promote accessibility, inclusivity, equal opportunities for all parties. And of course, they will have to understand that eventually, probably they will also be impacted by legislation through their customers. So we have an accessibility clause that we created. This is something that we share depending on the supplier's maturity with our partners. And basically within the clause, we ask the supplier to commit to certain things. Again, this can be creating a plan, creating a roadmap. How are they going to improve their accessibility maturity? Or this can be committing to get certain products certified, for example. So this is very much tailored to the supplier and their maturity levels, but it is something that we are planning to do more and more now that we have a larger number of suppliers going through our accessibility maturity questionnaire.
Yeah, thanks, Beata. Indeed, entering into contract negotiations with suppliers may be challenging, but as you said, it's also a great opportunity to start an education process and really build this kind of awareness around accessibility with suppliers. And we are almost done. But I would like to, if you could please, if you may, can you please summarize in a nutshell why accessibility is important in procurement of ICT products and services, in this case for us?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to understand that Atos has always been promoting sustainability, a more sustainable future, but not only from an environmental perspective, also from a social perspective. And this is where accessibility fits in so well. I think it's important to understand that this is a vital element of our strategy as well, because this will ensure that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can benefit from the products and the services that we also source and then resell or sell further on to our customers. I think it also fits into what we represent, that we promote equal opportunities, we promote inclusivity, and also just from a practical perspective, we know that accessibility will improve user experience, not only for those who actually have accessibility needs, but also for those who are just, I would say, users, regular people using different systems or different products. And of course, this will help us become more compliant with legal requirements. So I would say that ultimately it reflects our commitment to creating a more equitable and accessible world.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Beata. And then you pointed out something that's very, very important, which is that making something that's a product or a service accessible to everyone, not only for users with some kind of disability, will definitely improve the overall quality of that product or service and will definitely give us or supplier an edge towards the marketplace in this case. Thank you, Beata, again for your time and your valuable input. It's been really enlightening discussion on accessibility and procurement of ICT products and services at Atos, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, for having me.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching us, and back to you, Neil.
Thank you for a wonderful session, and congratulations also, because the work that you have done on procurement was recognised when Atos was selected as a finalist in the Disability Smart Awards just a couple of weeks ago. So great recognition for the work that you're doing that ripples out into our vendor and partner ecosystem, driving forwards accessibility, not just for our organisation, but across multiple organisations. So I hope that you, thank you for staying and listening to the end, have enjoyed this session today. We are excited and committed to accessibility here at Atos, and we hope that you can see the wide variety of topics that really encompass how accessibility is evolving in 2025 and beyond. I hope that you also understand that whilst today we celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day, accessibility is something that we do every day. Don't just celebrate it once a year. Make it part of your business as usual. Thank you. And until next time, happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day.